G'day and welcome to ReDriven. Now, the Suzuki Swift Sport. The fans of this thing claim that this is one of the most underrated performance cars out there, and it offers more bang for your buck than any other car in the used car market. But the not fans of this car claim that it's just overrated, it's too slow, it's just a cheap feeling nasty little hatchback, and for the same sort of money, you should just buy an older model Golf GTI or Mazda 3 MPS. We want to find out. Now that these are a few years old and have many thousands of kilometres on them, are they actually any good? Like, what actually goes wrong with them? What do they cost to own and operate? What do they like to live with on a daily basis? But most importantly, should you buy one? Let's find out. Now, I should mention in this video, we are going to be focusing on the Australian variants of the second generation 2012 to 2017 Swift Sport. But if you're not watching this from Australia, or if you're after information on the non-sport Swifts, everything that we're going to be going over, it should relate to Swift Sports and the non-sport Swifts in your local market. Now, the Swift Sport is the most performance-orientated Swift in the Swift lineup. And the reason that we're going to be focusing on the Swift Sport is because it has a different engine, it has different suspension tune, a whole bunch of other extras. But to go over this in more detail, let's cut to a B-roll montage with me doing a voiceover. Engine-wise, unlike the 1.4 litre power plants found in the lesser Swifts, the Sport is packing a 1.6 litre, pumping out what sounds unimpressive these days, 100 kilowatts and 160 newton metres. But it's important to remember, the Swift Sport only weighs a little over a tonne. Plus, there is nearly nothing more fun than driving a slow car fast, which we'll get to in a second. Transmission-wise, you can have your Sport as either a 6-speed manual or 7-speed CVT. Although, unless you physically cannot drive a manual, I don't understand why anyone would buy the CVT. And on top of the drivetrain differences, the Sport features performance-focused and retuned suspension, a sporty body kit, larger alloy wheels, larger brakes, contoured seats, and a light smattering of extra equipment and features. However, as the Sport is still based on the budget-conscious Swift, many do accuse it as feeling a bit cheap and nasty. But we're going to cover interior details and everything that can go wrong in a moment. The Swift range did receive a mid-life update in 2013, however the Sport model remained pretty much unchanged throughout its lifespan. Now guys, rather than covering every specific detail of the Swift Sport in this video, because if we did that, the video would go for hours, it would get incredibly boring. Instead, what we have done, we've gathered all of that information and we've stuck it in our incredibly handy and completely free ReDriven cheat sheets. Our cheat sheets are invaluable as they provide a full breakdown of the car's model range, its common problems, what you need to look out for before handing over your hard-earned cash, how much of that cash you should be handing over, and so much more. Check it out at redriven.com or in the link below. Now guys, if you're already a Swift Sport expert or you own one of these things and you've noticed in this video that we've missed something major, can you please let us know in the comments? Like, we're going to do our best to cover as much as we can on the car, but yeah, if we miss something huge, chuck it in the comments. Okay, so how's the exterior? From a design aspect, I personally love the way these look. I feel that they almost look, with the right set of aftermarket wheels and maybe just sitting a little bit lower, they can look almost Euro in style, kind of like this photo. Some people like that, some people don't. It's completely subjective. Either way, it's good. But, and I've said this in our other videos, I wish Suzuki would take more design risks with their normal cars. Like, you look at the Jimny, that thing looks so cool, all retro inspired, and they sell like hotcakes. Imagine if this thing was almost like the Suzuki version of like an Abarth 595. It would look so cool. I'm not saying it looks ugly, but yeah, I just wish it was a bit riskier in design terms. It would be unbelievably cool. Now, in terms of things to watch out for with the Swift Sport, look, many see this thing as a performance car. It is sort of a performance car, but because they're affordable, a lot of the people that are buying them are younger drivers. And sometimes those younger drivers can be shit drivers. It's not their fault. We're all shit at things that we're new at. So you've got to look for any signs of accident damage or dodgy repair work. Also, it's really important to be careful of dodgy modifications with these things. If the parts used are premium quality products, they've been clearly fitted professionally, and they're just intelligent choices, that can be okay. But if the parts used are clearly eBay specials, they've been fitted in a backyard, it might be a sign that the owner might be a dickhead and drives like a dickhead. Now, in terms of common problems with these things, not just with the exterior, but with the interior and mechanically what goes wrong, we're going to be getting to that in a second. Okay, so how's the interior? Well, look, from a design aspect, we have read a few criticisms from people claiming that this thing just feels cheap and nasty versus, say, like a Volkswagen Polo or Golf GTI. And I can see where they're coming from, but in saying that, I don't know, for me, there's just something like honest and no nonsense about this interior. First of all the bits you touch feel great. So like the weight of the pedals when you're driving, we'll get to the driving impressions in a second, but they all feel nice. The steering, the weight of the steering feels good, and the steering wheel just feels nice in the hands, like the actual girth of the steering wheel is perfect. Even the gear shift feels fantastic. There's not a lot of squidge in here. There's a lot of hard, scratchy plastics everywhere, but because of that, it's wearing and tearing quite well. In this particular car, there are some scratches on that plastic, but it's not too bad. The seats are in fantastic condition. Speaking of the seats, they're so comfortable. They are the perfect balance between being supportive and sporty, yet still, great on a long trip. I wish the seat height got a little bit lower, but that's being really, really picky. It's good because the steering actually has heaps of adjustment, both with telescope and up and down. So even though the seat is, for me, a little bit high, you do still feel kind of hunkered down. Even in terms of the buttons, like they all still feel nice to use. And look, again, I do get it for those that, don't like this interior. It does feel a little bit cheap, but it is based on a budget-conscious Swift. But in saying that, because it does feel a little bit cheap, yet it still feels robust, I feel like you'd happily use it. Like you wouldn't be precious about putting your feet and arms anywhere, or just kind of lounging about, or maybe giving a car a proper bootful through some corners. In terms of other wear and tear, okay, up here around this door handle, that's getting a bit scratched up there. Some of the plastics here are getting a bit shiny. But in saying that, like this car's got over 40,000 Ks on it, and the steering wheel honestly still feels new. The gear shifter still feels new. The pedals still look good. It's good. Now, speaking of another Swift Sport snowboarding, I'm exactly 36 centimeters taller than this snowboard. This is in my driving position, and you know what? It's actually pretty comfortable. In saying that, if I was to sit with any, decorum, that's pretty uncomfortable because my knees are smashed up against the back of the seat. But if you're happy to do like a OnlyFans style leg spread, this is really comfortable. Even up here, like it's nice and airy and spacious, genuinely comfortable back seat. And wear and tear in the back seat, what wear and tear? I don't know if this has ever actually been sat in the back seat because it feels like a new car. There is no wear and tear back here. Okay, so how's the tech? Well, look, even though this is the top of the range Swift, it is still a Swift, so it's not exactly drenched in tech. But to give an overview of what tech and features it does have, here's me doing another voiceover. The Sport will come equipped with climate control, central locking, front fog lights, bi-xenon headlights, push-button start, a trip computer, an immobiliser, USB input, auxiliary input, a 12-volt power outlet, Bluetooth connectivity, a CD player, and a 6-speaker stereo that sounds pretty good. Forget anything like Apple CarPlay or Android Auto, but to get that stuff, it's super easy. You just replace this head unit with an Apple CarPlay or Android Auto fitted head unit, and while you're at it, maybe fit some new speakers as well. Now, as we mentioned at the start, if you want the full list of what tech and equipment that this car comes with, just jump on ReDriven.com and check out that cheat sheet, or click on the link in the description below there somewhere. Okay, so is it practical? Well, in the boot, sort of. It actually has one of the smaller boots in its class, and even though the seats do fold forward, you're left with a huge lip here and an even larger lip here, so it can be a challenge to slide things in and out. And practicality in the back seat, you've got some ReDriven script holders here in the back. You've got a little hook here, but it's got a maximum of 3 kilos, so you can't exactly do your chin-ups or any dips off it. There's a little hidden cup holder here, which is really, really cool. There's door bins, but they're so squished against your body, you'd have to break or dislocate your wrist and elbow to get anything in and out of it. And there's a spot for life's secrets just here. And practicality up front, you've got even more spots for life's secrets just up here. You've got some good sized door bins and a spot for a water bottle, or really any bottle up there. Nothing too large, maybe 1 litre at most. You've got a cup holder, little storage cubby hole here, another cup holder, little storage cubby hole here. Perfect spot for your phone just here, right next to the charging points, which is good. Pretty decent sized glove box. A bookshelf for tiny books there. And I think that's it. There's nothing under the seats. There's no sunglasses spot up here. That's it. Okay, so what goes wrong with these things? Normally, before we get to the mechanical stuff, we cover, the exterior and interior problems and common faults. But the thing is, with all the research we did on this car, we couldn't really find any. There are no common problems as such. There are the odd sporadic reports of, minor things going wrong, but even on further investigation, most of those problems were due to abuse or just bad modifications. But yeah, as far as the exterior goes, there are no common problems. Even inside, yeah, nothing commonly goes wrong as such. Like, occasional sporadic reports that maybe a button or two kind of get a bit faulty, or the bolsters on the seats can get a bit overly squidgy, but that's about it. But before we get into the mechanical issues that these cars can suffer from, I've got to ask a favour. If you're enjoying this video and enjoying ReDriven in general, can you please hit those like, subscribe and bell buttons and share ReDriven's content as much as you can, because the more you hit those buttons and the more you share our stuff, the more of this stuff we can make. Now, mechanically, what goes wrong with the Swift Sport? Well, look, I'd love to tell you, but I can't because I'm not a qualified mechanic. That'd be wrong, but Jim is.
The 1.6 litre petrol, or the M16A, has been around for years, and it's one of those engines where there are really no serious mechanical problems you need to watch out for. In poorly serviced versions, if they're really badly neglected, sometimes you see timing chain wear and tear, which it just rattles on startup, and occasionally some oil consumption issues. Other than that, it's really just the basic things like the odd water pump leak or some minor oil leaks. As for the 1.4 or the K14 engine, it's a similar story. If well serviced, there's really no serious problems you need to worry about. The 1.3 litre diesel, which we didn't actually see in Australian Suzuki Swifts, which is probably a good thing, it's shared with a bunch of other cars, from Fiat Pandas to Citroën Nemos and Peugeot Bippers. It's actually got a pretty bad reputation with timing chain complications, EGRs clogging up, and turbo problems and a bunch of oil leaks. The manual transmissions in these are usually trouble-free, and the CVT in these, well, they're a Jatco CVT, and that comes with a terrible reputation for reliability. But in these Swifts, they're actually pretty good. Some of the early ones had a few recalls relating to some electronics issues, but if they're well serviced, generally in these, they're pretty good. So yeah, overall, mechanically, pretty solid little nugget.
Is it safe? Well, according to Australian safety Cool Cats ANCAP, apparently so, because they gave this thing a full 5-star ANCAP safety rating. But for an overview of what safety equipment and tech you can expect, here's another voiceover, but this time, it's my friend Jerome singing it. Now, I'm going to get him to sing it in like a kind of a Blink-182 pop punk style.
Electronic stability control, yeah. Traction control and cruise control. Electronic brake force distribution, yeah, 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 yeah. And all the seatbelts have pretension mesh and low limiters, yeah. It's the motherfucking Swift.
For all of the details of what safety tech the Swift Sport receives, just jump on ReDriven.com and check out that cheat sheet. So, what's it like to drive? Well, let's put it this way. We've had what I feel is both ends of the spectrum of compact performance cars here on ReDriven. At one end of the spectrum, you've got the Peugeot 205 GTI, classic 80s hot hatch, and it's almost brutal in how like raw and alive it was. And then at the other end, you've got the Audi RS3, which offers genuine luxury and truly insane levels of performance. And the Swift Sport, it's almost like the perfect compromise of compact performance cars. Okay, according to the numbers, it isn't actually all that fast. We'll get to the performance times in a second, but it feels so much faster than it is, but most importantly, it's just fun all of the time. Here's the thing, like the 205 GTI was fabulous to drive, but it was almost exhausting in how tactile it was. It's almost like someone shouting at you all the time. And then the Audi RS3, also fabulous to drive, but the thing's so bloody fast, you spend more time looking for the police and speed cameras than you do just genuinely enjoying how good it is to drive. This thing, like when you get up it, it is just so enjoyable to drive, but at the same time, you're never deep into the realms of, hello officer, here's my license, feel free to keep that. Now, instead of doing 0 to 100 kilometers an hour, which everybody else does, because let's be honest, you're rarely going to do that, we're going to do 0 to 60 kilometers an hour because you will be doing that on a daily basis. And also, chances are you're going to be pulling onto a freeway or overtaking someone in the time that you own this car. So let's also do 60 to 100 kilometers an hour. But even when you're not driving it, enthusiastically, it's just a pleasure to drive. Like the suspension, it's firm and confident, but it's never ever uncomfortable. The vision out is fantastic, so it's really easy to judge the parameters of the car, easy to park, easy to maneuver in really tight traffic, but then on the freeway it hums along nicely. The gearing could be a little bit longer on the freeway, but that's being very, very picky. Even in terms of like rattles and road and wind noise, this thing has no rattles. There is a little bit of wind noise, a little bit of road noise, but that's to be expected. It is based on a budget hatchback. The engine, it's a smaller, naturally aspirated 4-cylinder, so it's not exactly, oozing in levels of torque, so you do have to rev it out to kind of get anywhere, especially if you're overtaking. That can be a little bit antisocial, but in saying that, it's also very fun. Pricing here in Australia kicks off from around about $8,500, but an $8,500 Swift Sport is going to have led a hell of a hard life. At the opposite end of the spectrum, absolute mint condition examples with barely any kilometres on them, low $20,000. Something like this, a 2015 in really good condition with low kilometres on it, round about 18,000 bucks. And for some international pricing, here's a graphic. Suzuki claim a fuel consumption figure of anywhere from 6.1 to 6.5 litres per 100 Ks. Depending on if it's a manual or an auto, the manuals are a little bit thirstier. Hence why this car is claimed at 6.5 litres per 100 Ks, but it's actually seeing 10.4. Suzuki offered a 3-year, 100,000 kilometre warranty on all of these Swift Sports, which means they're all well and truly out of warranty now. But just a heads up, if you are looking at buying one of these from a dealership and that dealership offers you a used car warranty, make sure you read the fine print, because some of those used car warranties are not worth the paper they're written on. Suzuki's recommended service intervals will vary between every 6 months and 10,000 Ks or 12 months and 15,000 Ks depending on the year model. But here's the thing, if you're driving these things hard all the time, stick to that 6 months and 10,000 Ks. If you're as cool as a cucumber and very rarely flex that right foot, every 12 months and 15,000 Ks should do the job. Also, thanks to Suzuki being a bit more of a budget conscious brand and this thing being a pretty simple little machine, the cost of parts and labour should be really affordable. Also, if you own one or you're looking at buying one, make sure you join one of the owners groups. We did to do the research and they have been unbelievable with how much help and advice they've given. So yeah, join an owners group. Owners groups, you guys are legends, thank you. Okay, so should you buy one? Well look, if you can find a good one with a solid service history that you're really confident has been well cared for, it's a huge bloody yes. The Swift Sport is just a superb little car that we really cannot recommend highly enough. It's fun pretty much all of the time, it's affordable to own and run, it offers great practicality, and even after a few years, is proving to be ultra reliable. Obviously be really careful of, badly modified or abused examples, and there's no need to rush in because there are heaps of these on the used market. But have it checked out by your local mechanic, and if it ticks all the boxes, just buy it. Actually, you know what? I'm seriously considering buying one of these. Guys, ignore the haters, they don't know what they're talking about. This thing, brilliant. Guys, thank you so much for watching, and what do you think? Should I buy a Swift Sport? Would you buy a Swift Sport? Let us know in the comments. And remember, can you please hit all those like, subscribe and bell icons and share ReDriven as much as you can? The more you hit all that stuff and share our content, the more of this stuff we can make for you. See you guys next time. Non-sport Swifts. Everything that was going so well until I f***ed it. Okay, here we go. Free ReDriven cheat sheets, but that truck's making a massive racket and ruining the take. The truck's coming from every angle. Oh, I only got one more. But it is based on a Swift, so, what am I trying to say, Sam? For all of the details, For all of the details of, what am I trying to say?